should have put my pirate mask on.
There
It's
you
in my
go.
car. Where are my chickens?
I would fire a mess, but I can't breathe through it.
Well, we'll get you Badger Mask.
You did bring
Mask,
the
the original set.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to give a couple minutes to let people log on. We have a great panel today. We have two special guests, and I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. But the big topics at hand right now are obviously Governor Polis's recently released, well, last week, mask mandate. And also the question weighing on everyone's mind is, what does back to school mean for Lincoln County, Eastern Colorado this year? So I will first start with Terry Weber. Terry, go ahead and introduce yourself and your role at the school.
I'm Terry Weber. I'm superintendent at Genoa-Hugo High School, and I guess go Pirates. Huh?
There you go. John,
I'm John McCleary. I'm the superintendent of schools for Limon School District RE4J in Limon, Colorado, home of one of the winningest state football team championships.
Why did you have to bully with me? Rachel Smith, Director of Nursing for Lincoln Health, and I am a Genoa-Hugo alum.
there you go.
John Fox, family doc and Lincoln County Health Officer, and I just moved here 30 years ago, so.
You might play a special role to the team, right? Aren't you the team physician?
I do a little bit of that with Limon, yeah.
Wait. Okay, and Patsy Smith is saying, speak up. I know the masks make it hard to hear us, guys, so we will try our hardest. The first thing we're going to tackle is the mask mandate. There have been messages, obviously. Facebook is full of information. The Lincoln County commissioners will not be enforcing the mask mandate. However, they do suggest and encourage our residents to wear masks when in public places. We here at Lincoln Health are going to support that as well. If you come to the hospital, we do have requirements. Rachel, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
So we are in support of the mask mandate here at Lincoln Health. All staff currently are donning masks as soon as they enter the building, and then are doffing them when they go home. We are requiring all patients to come for procedures or appointments to wear masks as well. And then we are requiring all of our patients that are in the acute care setting to wear a mask anytime they are outside of their room, or if they have the ability to wear them when we interact with them during our assessments and procedures while they're here.
Perfect. And then the screening process?
So we are currently supporting the screening as provided by the state and the CDC. All outpatients and staff are being screened at the time of arrival. So you will be asked to have your temperature taken, and then you will be asked all the questions in regards to whether or not you've been to a high risk area, if you witnessed any cough or other flu-like symptoms in the last few days.
Perfect. Dr. Fox, you want to talk to us a little bit? I know it's a new topic for you, but why the mask work? Why we are seeing our support for the masks?
Well, we know that masks decrease transmission of this disease from person to person. They do offer some protection for the person that's wearing them, but specifically the greatest protection is they prevent you, if you have the disease, even if you're asymptomatic with the disease, they decrease the likelihood that you're going to spread it to other people. And if everyone's wearing a mask, the transmission rate is below 1%. That's 1 in 100 people. And that's pretty darn good. So there's no question that there is more and more and more scientific evidence every day that masks work. One of the you'll hear all sorts of things. They said don't wear them. Well, that was in the distant past 3 months ago when they last said that. And with this bug, 3 months is the distant past. We know now that masks do make a difference, can make a difference, and the more people that wear masks, the better. People argue about whether it should be mandated, whether there should be any penalty. I will mention that even though the county commissioners are not supporting any penalty, they are mandating that masks be worn in the county courthouse. So that should give you an idea, at least to their mindset, of how important this is to decrease the spread of this disease. Also, we've when you look at the numbers, we're still hanging in there at 6 cases right now. We still have a few tests that are pending, but just look to your east and you're going to see 10 new cases in Kit Carson County and Burlington, and it's around, it's close. We need to be vigilant. We need to continue to not let this down. And one of the reasons masks sometimes don't work very well is because of the way people wear them. So if your nose is hanging out over the top of your mask, you're really not helping yourself. And in fact, you might be putting yourself at greater risk, because any droplets that accumulate on your mask, now you're rubbing them on your nose. So if you're wearing your mask, wear your mask. Commit to it, do it. It does make a difference.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Fox. Raging Falco has a question on screening. If we have been at a high-risk area or have any symptoms, are we turned away or just ask more questions?
If you do have symptoms and you have a fever greater than 100.0, we would probably ask you to reschedule. We're trying to facilitate all those conversations prior to you actually coming to the facility. We would also ask that all of our patients are diligent in recognizing whether or not they're currently having symptoms and support the recommendations to stay at home if that happens. However, if you have visited a high-risk area, as we all do, whether to get groceries, to attend events, whatever it may be, that is not something that we would turn you away for just alone. So we do ask that you answer those questions very honestly, so that we have the best capability of keeping everyone safe. However, if you've only been to a high-risk area, that does not single you out to not be treated that day.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to the superintendents. Thank you guys for joining us today. I know the community has many questions about what school starting means. So we'll start with you, John. Is school starting? When is it starting? What does that look like?
Thanks for having me, Lincoln Health, and I love being down here to see you all. I've been watching your Facebook Live programs, and so it's kind of interesting to be on this end. But thanks for inviting me. Last night, Limon Public School District's school board ratified our reopening plan. It's a pretty detailed plan, about 23, 24 pages. Procedures and everything else like that we're going to follow. I want to kind of describe the plan just a little bit. One of the challenges for a reopening plan is that we have to be nimble. So we have a green plan for school as normal as possible. We have a yellow plan for increased cautions, and we have a red plan in case we're shut down again. I just want to speak to the shutdown. I do not think that we're at risk of being shut down by the state anymore. We're at risk of being shut down because our numbers increased locally. And so that's a really important point that I want everybody in Lincoln County, whether you go to my school or Terry's school, it's up to us to protect us in this county. And I think our doctors have done a great job, our Department of Public Health, our county commissioners are doing a great job. Let's continue it into the fall, and let's get rid of this stupid thing so that we can get back to some normal life.
Yeah.
So the plan is written in that spirit. It's not an invasive plan. It's one that's full of management, and it was developed in conjunction with our directors, folks like Charlie Martinez, Tom Head, Lacreta Meese. It was developed with input from Lincoln County Health Department, the doctors Fox Foxes. Sorry, still throwing me off.
Foxies?
Dr. Foxies have all reviewed the plan and gave us feedback. We made some adjustments there. And then it was developed by you, the parents, in our community. You know, we had over almost 200 parents respond back. And we listened to what you were saying, and we listened to some of your concerns. We developed a plan around those concerns. But really what we heard from the overwhelming majority of our parents was that if we were to implement appropriate procedures, increase sanitation, some common sense safety measures, do you want to send your kids back to school? And like 90% of parents responded, yes, absolutely. You know, I don't know if that's coming off the spring or what it is, you know, but it's been so we've developed this plan with the idea of education as close to normal as possible, with some really common sense measures put in to make sure that, you know, our kids are safe and that our staff's safe. You know, I mean, the research shows that the kids aren't really that much at danger. You know, that now they're definitely transmitters of the virus, but they're not really the ones at danger. I want to keep our teachers safe. And you know what? There's danger in that with if we have a lot of staff, or God forbid somebody were to get sick enough that they would die from COVID that was connected to kids, that would just be traumatic.
Yeah.
And we don't want that, because Limon Public Schools, just like every other public school in Lincoln County, they're healthy places, they're good for our kids, they're mentally important for our kids, and socially and emotionally really significant. And we've got to get back to school. And so that's our commitment, and we can talk about, I can answer specifics. You can access that plan at www.limonbadgers.com. And you'll be able to have a chance to see that, and it'll be posted up there later on today. Yep, it's just 3 W's.
Yeah. Sorry guys, it might still take you there. I think I'll just delete this and learn how to type.
That's fine.
Okay. Terry, I know you guys probably are under very similar planning. When does school start in Hugo, and specifically anything you want to touch on regarding?
Following John's tough. I mean, he does a great job. Certainly thank you for allowing me to be here as well today. A letter went out in the paper this week from Genoa-Hugo, and it was mailed home actually, and they should have been getting those letters about reopening here, and our board will approve that. Hopefully approve most of that plan on August 6th. So when we go back. We go back to 12th and the 13th with middle school, high school, and then we're also going to be doing testing individually for young kids at that time, for elementary kids, and those teachers will call and make contact with parents to set up those individual tests. We're going to start with NWA and things like that to get the year rolling, and then school for everybody on August 17th, preschool included. And we think we have a good plan too. We want to be safe. I mean, you're never going to be perfectly safe in this pandemic, but we want to be as safe as possible. And I agree with John. It's for the mental aspects of these kids, for their mental health. We need to get back to school. It feels like it's time. Lincoln County's done a great job at keeping the numbers low, and we feel like we can start. The plan lays out things like how we're going to check kids' temperatures, but honestly, we need help at home there too. We need parents doing those home checks before school that morning, so that they kind of have an idea: is my kid sick? Should I even send my kid to school? And also, you know, in the past, and when we still need to emphasize, please attend. Don't just be absent from school for no reason. But in this time of the pandemic, we're going to have to back off on some of that perfect attendance, those kinds of things, and take health into account first when we're bringing kids to school, and really pay a lot of attention to gee, should I send my kid? If there's a question whatsoever, maybe not that day, like in the past, send somebody to school with tuberculosis. We don't want something like that going on. But honestly, I think as parents all around, we need to take a hard look at who gets on that bus in the morning and goes to school and is ready. Because we certainly don't want to get them there and turn them around, because our health checks are going to be much more diligent than they've ever been in the past. And that stuff's going to kind of work its way into the year. You know, the staff, we haven't had a lot of community input to this point, but I would thank Principal Sherry Humphrey and and our business manager Karen, our janitor and main staff William Bart, because they've been instrumental. I see them every day, and they say, well, heck, we can put up dividers here, and we've done a lot of that kind of stuff. Basically sneeze guard type things around lunch tables and stuff. Where can we socially distance? And then yesterday we got the guidance on cohorts, and not so much social distancing in the elementary school. And I think my elementary teachers are still out partying somewhere on that.
That's a good point. Can you tell us about cohorts, what that means?
Sure. You want to, and really it's kind of for contact tracing, so you keep track of who might have an outbreak, and then if you do get one, which adults were in contact with that child and what other children. But and Dr. Fox alluded to this a minute ago about tougher for younger kids to transmit and receive the virus than maybe adults can do. So when you do cohorts, you keep like all of the kindergartens together all day. And it's going to be hard to do. We're still working. We've only had that guidance for about 48 hours. We're keeping our minds open around that. It does make some things easier teaching wise. Fifth graders, they wouldn't mix with fourth graders, and only a certain amount of adults allowed in the room like that. But it makes normal education happen, where in the social distancing where you're 6 feet apart or something, it's way tougher. I mean, you're trying to teach. I had a second grade teacher say, I can't teach these kids unless I get my peanut table and get in there. I can get up here and show them what page we're on, what are we reading now, and these teachers want to teach and they want to do it right.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also important to point out is that cohorting is going to be easier for like kindergarten classrooms. Like our middle school will be able to cohort pretty easily. It starts to get more challenging with older kids who actually this virus can have a bigger impact on, but that's why we also have like other levels of mitigation of this virus, in between. Like, if we've got a large class, we may ask kids to keep masking up even after we get out of the mask order, just to make sure of that, all that'll be in conjunction. But, hand washing, all those other things, socially distancing, all of those things, I think when we combine them all, we're going to have a safe environment at both of our schools. And I really feel like it's safe enough for our kids to go back to school.
That's wonderful.
And every determination that we've made, our first commitment is the question, is this safe for students, staff, and our community? And so, we really held ourselves to that expectation. And so when we started to plan and when we've been buying like masks and buffs and everything else like that for kids, it's always been around, is this the right decision around safety for the kids? And I think that's going to be our basically kind of our professional development focus this year, is working on keeping our kids safe, and managing that. And that's not very flashy.
No.
It's not like, oh, well, look at this new testing program or other things like that. But I think it's going to be important. That's not very flashy either. That's fair enough.
Are you guys going to get the drone that will come in and sanitize the entire building? I think they've got them now that'll completely sanitize a professional arena in 3 hours. You guys going to get those?
Well, let's see what Congress approves as far as
the only drone that goes on in our school is whenever I drone on and on. But I don't think that's the droning you're talking about. But we actually do. We've been looking at, how does a teacher disinfect her class fast? His or her class. So like each one of our teachers, we had feedback from our parents is that I don't want our kids doused in a ton of chemicals all day. And so like during the day, we're using steam cleaners, these little handheld portable steam cleaners that teachers can zip on something, use a microcloth to wipe it down if they need to, hit the crayon box, hit the pen box, those kind of things that kids may, we're not encouraging that sharing, but kids are kids.
Right.
And we're going to expect them to be kids, because that's what I want.
Right.
But we're going to do our best to keep them, safe and disinfected.
we have a ton of questions.
Yeah, let's see what
Melissa asked whether masks are required at school, and my understanding that is under the governor's mandate, yes, they are.
Yeah, 11 and up.
So the younger children, no, but 11, we've had some discussion about whether it was 10 or 11, but apparently it's 10 and up for the governor's mandate. Are kids going to be required to wear masks during PE?
So our intention for the fall is to have PE outside, so there's not a lot of mask wearing there. If they're inside, then we have already talked about that. We consider that as part of the mandate. So, really strenuous exercise, other things like that, I think that our PE teachers will probably take into account, if you're inside versus if you're outside. Another thing that we're doing in like weightlifting classes, kids are using an app instead of like pencils and papers and things like that they can use their phones to track their progress. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, so that less touch of things and more of a personal experience.
And Stephanie, I will try next week to bring a device. It's silicone and it looks like a little dome. It's got big holes in it. It's just more of a frame because a lot of people complain when they're breathing heavier, when they're exercising, that they're sucking their mask up their nose and mouth. This is a device that will go underneath your mask and will actually hold that mask away from your nose and mouth and make it more comfortable for some people to wear those. I don't have one with me, but I will try to bring one and show you guys next week what those look like, and get you more information on how to find those. But they are soft, they're comfortable, and when you're in a situation where you have to wear a mask, but you got to breathe heavier because you're exercising or whatever, they may come in handy for situations like that.
Perfect. So Shirley, your question, what about sports? I know there's lots of questions surrounding sports. If your question is, do they wear masks at sports? I don't know that we even know the answer to that, but you guys are still, there's a lot of uncertainty regarding sports. Is that correct?
Well, it's the question of the month. But right now, CHASA developed a plan. It's at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They're reviewing that plan, looking at it, and I think we're going to hear in the next couple weeks for sure. But we are training like we're going to have sports. I think it's important that if you've got a high school age kid, you need to be promoting training and other things like that, because believe it or not, outside of the news, you can actually still get hurt from other things besides COVID. and I want our kids conditioning and in good shape. Something I want to touch on that, because I understand that I've had people say, well, if I have to wear a mask, and I'm not going to go work out, or if I have to wear a mask, I'm not going to school. This is going to end. This whole issue is going to end eventually, and when it does, and we can take these masks off, I want us to be able to leap ahead and run as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And so we'll get through this, and if we can do this, I feel like we're going to have sports.
Right. Well, and to those student athletes, they're not the only ones being enforced with masks.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody is. If it's your handicap is the mask, everybody's being handicapped with those same masks. So, Alicia Thompson asks, will alcohol wipes be okay versus Clorox wipes?
Yes.
They work as well?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Great job. And Terry, I don't know if you saw it, but one of your teachers said, we are very excited. Mrs. Kraxberger said we are very excited.
She's one of those at the party.
And let's see, we covered everything, I believe. So, do you guys want to, you talked about self-screening before. What about parents going in and out of the school? I think that might be an important thing to touch on.
Good point. Yeah, so we just can't have them in the building, and except for by appointment. We'd love to meet with parents face to face. There's going to be issues at school. There's always something coming up. But please call, make an appointment to come in. Hugo's been a pretty relaxed place. Preschool parents have taken their kids downstairs to the preschool. Parents have come in with the kids in the mornings. Those things won't happen anymore. You're going to be outside the front doors. However, if you do need to talk to us, please just call and we'll sit down, make an appointment to get you in there and visit with you, whatever your concerns are. We are changing that at Hugo a little bit. We're going to do preschool drop-off on the backside downstairs at an individual door instead of through the main masses and that social distancing question. trying to keep practicing some of those things.
And a lot of that is just to know who has had contact with whom, correct? A lot of, you don't want
Just to
parents.
keep them from pouring
Yeah.
the herd apart. You know?
The herd
Because
apart.
they listen so well.
Do you have the same policy in Limon?
Yeah, last year we did a much better job of controlling access, because the year before we went through, the National Rifle Association came out and did a school threat training unit, and they looked at our facility, and one of the recommendations was to allow one-point access and really control parental access to the building. So we've done that. So when you come to school this year, we've got older kids that will walk your younger students to class. We'll make sure that we get your student to where they need to be. But parents are stopped at the front door. You know, I mean, I think that Limon can do a good job of controlling our kids and helping them hand wash and other things. But when we start to bring in tons of folks from the community, or, you know, cousins that come in or something else like that, that's too problematic. So we're just going to stop all that at the door. We will have scanning kiosks for temperature checks that will ask parents to just get their temperature checked if they come in for a meeting and other things like that. And, you know, we'll just go from there. But really, it's all about keeping our kids safe.
Right. One last thing we want to touch on is the schools obviously will have supplies of masks, but as we move into fall and so the PPE or that personal protection equipment is difficult to get your hands on at this time, and if we see any kind of increases nationwide, it will become increasingly difficult to obtain. So you guys have talked about kids bringing their own masks.
Yeah, what I want parents to consider a mask as a part of the school supply, and I just think it's a good idea for your kid to have a mask inside their backpack. You know, here's an example. The other day, I went to the courthouse and they said you couldn't have a mask. Well, I forgot my mask, and then so I started digging through my car looking for a mask. I finally found my daughter's Hello Kitty mask, and I had to go in. Well, if I would have just had an extra mask stashed on me, I wouldn't have been nearly as embarrassed, you know. So it's just, you know, have a mask in case you need one, you know, in your backpack, and then we have over 2,000 masks purchased for kids. We've got buffs for some of the younger kids, and they'll keep you cooler, those things. And then we've got awesome Limon Badgerized masks for the older ones, and so I think that we're going to wash those at school as well, because, you know, I don't think it's a great idea to keep using a dirty mask over and over again. So we'll wash them at night. They'll be ready for the kids when they come back into school, and we'll do that as long as we have to.
And remember, parents, your mask needs to be dress code appropriate, especially with those older kids. I've seen some that are definitely not. All right, well, I think we've reached the end of our questions, and we're just about out of time.
Megan, I just want to mention there are at least 4, and there may be more because it's happening fairly quickly, vaccines that are now in stage 3 clinical trials. Probably, yeah, I've said, you know, 1st of June next year realistically, but it's looking like there may be some available by the 1st of the year, perhaps.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm not planning on it, but I am keeping my fingers crossed, because that would make a huge difference. You know, you talk about it being more difficult to get PPE. You know, the interesting thing is that in the last 2 weeks, you know, the United States has seen 25% of the total cases of coronavirus that have happened in these last 2 weeks. We're over, or right at, going over 4 million. We'll be over 4 million in this country as of today. And the thing is, if people will use their PPE as a preventative measure instead of an after-the-fact measure, we can really drive those numbers down and that makes PPE a lot more available. So, you know, you're not only helping yourself. You remember, the reason you wear the mask is to protect all those around you. If you care for those people around you, please wear a mask. If you don't care for them, then
He doesn't mean that, just wear it. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to join us. As always, Rachel, Dr. Fox, thank you for being here today. And we will see y'all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.